So here's one from Alex Queetham Payne. Do you know Alex,
I
perchance, Eric?
do.
Okay,
Yes,
awesome.
I do know Alex.
Cool. So Alex asks, this was a great question as well from our Facebook group, the HerbRally Facebook group. With modern research always expanding and new drugs coming out on the scene, how do you keep up to date with the latest scientific, nutritional, pharmacological, and herbal information?
Okay. Well, this is a really great question. I think one of the things that I have done is I have subscribed to newsletters of several journals that I follow, including the Journal of the American Medical Association. They do send really wonderful sort of overviews and about like things that are being newly published and whatnot. And so I highly recommend finding some high quality journals. And again, this is high quality is a whole can of worms that I also teach about in my demystifying scientific research series, which you can actually access if you're in HBX. I'm just going to stop plugging myself now. Alex already knows. And so, I think what's easiest for me, because I don't have time to go like, okay, today I'm going to search on PubMed, for whatever. I mean, I don't tend to have that kind of time. But I do appreciate getting these sort of dossiers that come through from several journals that I follow. So I can kind of look and see what's coming on the pipeline. When it comes to herbal research, in particular, scientific research into plants and to herbs, the majority of it, I'm just going to say this. I mean, someone might pin me to the wall and beat me later, but most of it's crap. And most of it's crap because we're looking at preclinical studies here that are, in vitro or in vivo animal studies that lack clinical relevance. They don't tell us very much at all about how plants work in bodies. And so I tend to not the sense that I ignore, I don't look, but it's more, I don't give a lot of weight to a lot of research that comes out on herbs. Now, there are, less so because, unless you're a private nutraceutical company that has money to fund a clinical trial, there's not a lot of clinical trials either coming down the pipeline that are focused specifically on the practice of herbalism. Usually they're about a supplement that's being made, and the end number is like the number of participants is very small, like 10 or 20. And so the study doesn't have a lot of power as far as its statistical, I'm talking about statistical power, not like Popeye power. And so, again, it's very difficult for me to be on the receiving end of a bunch of garbage and have to like whittle through it. I just don't have that time and space. So I tend to be a little bit more proactive in, just allowing those newsletters to come through from the journals, looking and seeing what's kind of new coming down the pipeline. If it seems interesting, checking it out. If not, delete. And that's kind of how I keep track of things. I guess. I guess that's it. Yeah.
Totally. So, Julia, correct me if I'm wrong. Julia has I think maybe a follow-up question. What herbal books would you recommend to help me get started on that end?
On the research end, or just in general, or
Yeah, let's see.
both.
Both.
Okay. So I feel like I've got a few really classic books that I definitely have loved. I've loved deeply. And the one is actually called, I don't think it's in print anymore. It's harder to find. But it's the Essential Book of Herbal Medicine by Simon Mills. He's a colleague of mine with the National Institute of Medical Herbalists, and has done a lot of work with Carrie Bone, who is also NIM. And so the other book that I would recommend is oh my goodness, Medical Herbalism. Nope, that's not the right one. Okay, now I'm on the spot. I can't remember the name of the book. It's Mills and Bone, and that's kind of looking more at the sort of pharmacology and overview of current scientific research. And they do a really good job of taking everything with a grain of salt. Yeah, Mills and Bone, Julia, Mills and Bone. And then Simon Mills' book, I mean, I'm talking up Simon Mills right now. Nothing to disclose. His essential book of herbal medicine was written a really long time ago, but for me, like, it definitely set the precedent of a mindset of how we use plants to support the body. And it's a really good, super interesting read. So those maybe would be a couple that I would suggest. I think there's a lot of herbalism books out there that are really amazing. Like Krista's new book, for example. Well, it's newish. That is incredible tome that she wrote. My gosh. And maybe you can put some info about that, into the chat or into the notes or something like that. I really enjoyed her work. There was another book that came out, was kind of edited by and written by a bunch of UK herbalists, called The Western Herbal Tradition. And the Western Herbal Tradition, was my thesis advisor, Graham Tobin, who is a sort of an expert in medical astrology and the work of Nicholas Culpeper, and Allison Denham and Margaret Whiteleg. And they wrote that. That's a really good one as well. But I do feel like there's a lot of herbal books that are sort of there. A lot of them are the same, as far as like, a regurgitation of information in a different format. And then of course we have this whole AI thing that's happening now, where we've got robots writing herbalism. So, but I mean, gosh, anything by, let's bless it. Anything by Rosemary Gladstar is going to be wonderful. I don't know. I could just go on, I suppose. But yeah, I'll stop.
That's a good starting point. Lots of books there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll second Christina Dinas. We have a YouTube video where we essentially interview her about the whole book. And she goes over for like 10 full minutes. So I'll include a link to that in at least the podcast show notes when this is released and whatnot. So this is kind of a broad question.
There's one more.
Please.
I got one more. The Practicing Herbalist by Margie Flint. I think that's also, and she's just republished that one. So I'll just add that to the list.
Well, and she's top of mind because she was also at the Great Lakes Herb Fair.
Yeah. She's amazing. I just love her. Yeah, she's great. Yeah.